So I was born in Cambridge, Massachusetts. And when I was about one, I moved to Bethesda, Maryland. And from the time I was one to the time I went to college, I lived in Bethesda, Maryland. Uh, and had I stayed and continued to live in Bethesda, Maryland, and someone had written about me in the New York Times, the Washington Post, or Axios, and they had referred to me as a Maryland man, that would have made a lot of sense to me. Grew up in, now I was born in Cambridge, so you say I'm a Cambridge baby, but really, as I grew to manhood, I was a Maryland man. And as I tweeted just a little while ago, let's say I grew up in Cleveland, lived in Cleveland as a boy, and then at some point in my 20s, I illegally went over the border of Russia, and I moved to Moscow. And I set up in Moscow, and the authorities accused me of committing various crimes around Russia, using Moscow as my home base. If the Russian media were going to write about me under those circumstances, I can tell you without any doubt they would not refer to me as a Moscow man. They just wouldn't. It doesn't make any sense. I came illegally to Russia and I lived in Moscow, but I would not be a Moscow man. Uh, Kim Abrego Garcia is now back in the United States, and we'll tell you all about why and what's happening. But for some reason, I just cannot get over the news alerts that I received today from the Washington Post, the New York Times, Axios, CNBC, all referred to him in the headline as a Maryland man. I just this matter, which we've talked about here at some length, there's a lot of really important issues that it implicates. The questions of what are the due process rights the United States should give and does give to people in this country illegally, and to those in this country illegal who are accused of crimes, particularly violent crimes. Incredibly interesting question, balancing as we've been since the founding of the republic, national security and civil liberties. Then the issue of adherence to court orders, because the judge said to the administration, and the Supreme Court ruled also in a little ambiguous ruling, you got to try to bring him back. And until today, they didn't, or at least they didn't successfully bring him back. So that's separation of powers issue, very important, very lofty. Then there's the question of understanding through journalism and government action what someone in this country has done. No dispute that he came to this country legally. So for many Americans, that's enough. He could have come to this country legally and set up an orphanage and a donut factory and donated all of his proceeds from the donut factory to the orphanage, and he'd still be in this country illegally and should be deported, according to tens of millions of us. But that's not what this guy did. He did not fund an orphanage. And so I'm not even saying all the things that are cross-cutting here and important, lofty issues, but I just cannot believe that after this debate we went through about this guy and what we now know about his history, and on the day he was indicted for horrible crimes, which we'll listen to, it's just mind-boggling. I cannot believe that there are decision makers in news organizations who, for many years, have been insensitive to the point of view of tens of millions of Americans who elected the president in the last election, who are fed up with a press that doesn't understand that constitutional and national crisis of having an open border, that these news decision makers would still refer to this guy as a Maryland man. For some reason, it's driven me a little bonkers. I cannot believe they're calling him a Maryland man on this day of all days.